Well, it's Tyler Douglas and Michael here today, and I have one question for the smartest guys in the room, and I want it answered before you boys leave today.
Where are they?
Where are they? Right here, and I want to know why Hillary is not in jail yet, prison, Gitmo, or at the end of a...
Yes, but you mean answering to her seditious treason?
Yeah, I want to know why she is still walking around that you-know-what.
Well, that used to be the biggest question in everyone's mind who had a mind and who had, two brain cells and a neuron to connect them. They would say, how does Wild Bill and Hildebeest get away with this stuff? Why are they never caught, prosecuted? Why are there literally, and this was shocking to me when Larry Klayman literally said 80 dead bodies that have surrounded the Clintons. Now, we know that the list is over 100. It's about 120 some of mysterious people dying everywhere around the Clintons whenever there is a critical moment when they might be compromised. Now, okay, let's say that's a conspiracy theory. Throw that out. But, okay, what about all of her crimes? What about the deaths of Benghazi? What about the emolument clause? What about the 145 million from Uranium One? What about working with Putin? What about working with basically bringing communist China into America to take over our manufacturing, bringing communist Russia, oligarchs of course, but bringing the Putin factor in to take over our uranium? And she doesn't get caught. This went on for 10 years. Michael McKibben is the only person who ever helped us understand why it is that Hillary does not go to jail when we see all of her crimes everywhere, and even when with her espionage server, which literally provided a copy of every one of her emails to the Chinese and others who were literally paying to play, so they got connection to whatever our Secretary of State was doing. There were at least 10 people, 10 of our CIA agents died in China because she compromised them. That's another 10 deaths. How about all the bombing? How about the 2 million people that her and Obama bombed in 7 countries that we never went to war with? How does Obama not get caught? But particularly, how do Bill and Hillary not get caught? So we tried to figure this out for years, and we couldn't. But then eventually, through study that we did with Michael McKibben, his friends who are researchers, and our friends over at Americans for Innovation, and other people, we figured this out. And it is so shocking. We've done videos on it. We've done articles on it. But everybody wants to know, Michael McKibben, why doesn't Hillary Clinton go to jail?
Because she has access to the encryption keys for any kind of communication on the internet, her and her friends. And I was trying to think of an analogy. So if you have somebody that you want to know what they're doing, and in the old physical world, you might hire somebody to break into their house and rifle through their files and look at who they're writing letters to and read all those and see their planning documents. And so I ask you, Douglas, if you had all that information, couldn't you probably get ahead of the narrative and deal with them so that they don't become a threat to you?
That's what Andrew Weissman did to President-elect, went in and stole his stuff. They did it to Manafort, they did it to Cohen, they did it to Gates. And then later, it's bullying lawyer tactics, using law enforcement to kick your door down to go in and literally get your attorney-client privilege material, just as you said, stolen or taken from their house, and then they get the information and then they give it back and apologize.
Yeah, well, physical robberies now are almost old school, because if the content has become digitized and is stored on files on a computer or is sent over the internet or through an email system, then this information is subject to digital encryption. So most people see that when they go onto a website now and it says HTTPS : Well, that's a security protocol with a public key infrastructure procedure that ostensibly encrypts the information so that nobody can read it while it's passing over the public internet. But the fact is, we now know that in 1993, Bill Clinton, John Podesta, James Chandler, and probably 75 of the thought leaders in the country at the time got together and they discussed giving the FBI a backdoor key to all electronic communications, and specifically electronic encryption. And so the bottom line is, with that key, even if it's encrypted at the surface level, it can be decrypted if you have access to these keys. And as we have discussed many times, it is now clear that the entire universe of companies that, quote, manage these keys under various what are called federal bridge authorities are all run primarily, I would say run, but controlled by three people: Hillary Clinton, Robert Mueller, and Michael Chertoff, the former Department of Homeland Security Director. So it's clear the people that were back in that meeting in 1993, by the way, Al Gore was in that meeting too, along with Mueller's people,
Stephen Crocker, IBM, the whole
Rod Rosenstein, IBM,
same criminal cabal that's still doing
by
it.
the way, Public Broadcasting System,
Comey.
CBS, NBC. So the people involved with that meeting, by the way, the knowledge of that meeting came out of Hillary's servers through Judicial Watch. Otherwise, we would not even know that. The people that initiated that backdoor key system are still the same players that we see today taking advantage of our president. And why? Because they can grab anything on any machine, or when it's at rest on a machine, or when it's on the move in the internet, they can grab that package of data and decrypt it without knowing the person's keys. There are several ways to do it. And so when you have access to all the things people are thinking and sometimes planning, they haven't done it yet, you obviously can keep ahead of the game forever. And that's what we have right now. And that's especially concerning as it comes up to this next election, because what we've now discovered is these same companies have access, these same companies that we're talking about now are being used by the secretaries of state in each of the states that manage the elections for each of our states. And so therefore, the future man in the middle problem, I think, is going to occur as the boards of election in each county send their results to the state tabulator. I believe we're going to see those messages intercepted, decrypted, the numbers changed before it's passed on to the counties, for the states. And so as a result, it's the ultimate man in the middle that can change any vote anywhere, anytime, in any county without anybody even noticing it happened.
And you discovered a company that controls the crypto keys for certain states for elections. So it's unbelievable that there is such an open system that the very people who seem to always get away with crimes don't get indicted, don't go to jail, but they're in control. For instance, right now, all of Washington, D.C., there cannot be a prosecution that goes through the Department of Justice unless it gets approved by Robert Mueller, because nobody knows how broad he is investigating. Rod Rosenstein said, investigate the universe, do whatever you want, you're the king, You're the king of the universe, Robert Mueller, so do whatever you want. So literally every investigation has to first be cleared by the Robert Mueller Special Counsel investigation. And they won't let the Inspector General, which is absolutely the law now, have access to what they're doing. So he is a secret operative right now. Every single decision in the Department of Justice has to go through him, and he's not even he's working as special counsel, but he's not in the Department of Justice. For all those years, I forget 12, 13 years, he was the head of the FBI. He covered up 9/11. He covered up Fast and Furious. He covered up Benghazi. He covered up all of that stuff. He was, basically the law enforcement fixer. So when he got the keys, and when you found that he had some of these Federal Bridge Authority certification authorization keys, which is basically a tax on every single thing that goes through the internet, In other words, the control mechanism of the internet, which they like to claim nobody owns, incorrect. This group that you mentioned in 93 with Hillary and Bill and their cronies, who are the same cronies still doing the same corruption. I mean, can you believe those people were all in the same room at one time? If you list this, Chandler, Stephen Crocker, who Stephen Crocker was in control of giving out the numbers for IP addresses. In other words, he basically controlled the internet. To say that we didn't own it or we don't control it, or that it's the lie that the internet exists in all of the many computers throughout the network and that there is no centralized location for it at all. It just exists in the wires. These kind of lies were to basically obfuscate the fact that the most ruthless lawyers, law enforcement people, and Bill and Hillary, remember, Hillary was a patent attorney, a patent infringement attorney, from the late 70s, were stealing patents like the QRS-11 that can bring down any plane. It's the control device in many, many, many things. She got in early, and she saw the power of all of this. And as you know, the Clintons put a tax on everything, whether it be pharmaceutical drugs for AIDS going to Australia, whether it be resources being developed in third world countries. It doesn't matter.
Well, so as I'll just interject, as we now know, that wasn't an original idea with Hillary to be a patent attorney. This now goes back to at least the Tesla days and Marconi's patent of wireless. And then from that point forward, British patents were clearly weaponized, and so they were just carrying forward a long tradition of stealing inventions in order to weaponize them.
And as we have been preaching, Serco, a British company, gets to do all the initial analysis of all patents in America. In other words, our patents go to Britain, go to England, go to the Queen's Privy Council, and they pick and choose what they want and they weaponize it. But that's only after Hillary and her group get their choice. They always get first choice. Then DARPA and In-Q-Tel get their choice for weaponization, but they work directly with the Brits, so it's almost simultaneously. So you might as well say Serco controls DARPA and In-Q-Tel. It's the same group, as you've pointed out. It's about stealing patents. It's about stealing the technology so that you can brainwash and control the world. But better than that, as Michael has pointed out, the Clintons are notorious in the past, before technology, of just stealing the documents that were the indictable evidence. They would just steal them. Sometimes their people would go in and steal them, get caught, but they'd make sure that the materials got destroyed. They'd go to jail, no problem. So many people have gone to jail around the Clintons. So many people have taken the fall. So what we have pointed out, what you and your research, just absolutely amazing. We were told that the Federal Bridge Authority certification was the most powerful group in the world. And that's where the richest people in the world go to retire. They buy into these sub-companies underneath the top companies that control these internet key authorizations, these certifications that basically, if I'm communicating to you, it has to go through one of these systems, and then it has to basically...
But it has to check. It doesn't go through physically. It has to check with them that the keys are there. It creates the key and does the encryption. It doesn't do the... Let me back up. When you send an email to someone, you have a private key. The system that's sending your email has a public key. Those two keys are married, and then your file is encrypted. That's the file that's sent through the internet, and then on the other side, that process is reversed. So this third-party system, the certificate, is just getting the public key. So it doesn't actually go through that system, but it has to check with that system like a homing pigeon checks with home to make sure that they're going the right place.
And as you pointed out, that means they can also, when they want, go in, look at anything, destroy it, change it, do whatever they want to anything. I mean your Gmail account. Now, if you put an URL in it that they don't like and you try to send it to your friend, they're already surveilling your account, and now there's these, they call them artificial intelligence, really, they're just computer subroutines that are looking for certain words, and when they find them, they simply will make your message disappear. They won't stamp it that it is not part of the user agreement.
It seems to be the new legal trick. They're using copyright law as the argument for saying that if you don't have permission to use another site's content, then you should not be allowed to use it or go to it.
And in Europe, that's called, with the European Union, Article 11 and 13. And Article 13 basically was called the Ministry of Truth. And also it was called many, many names. Because why? It's now gone to court, and they've upheld this law which says you can't put a meme anywhere. You can't put a URL connecting to any other site of anything that isn't yours. And even if you went out and bought a song, as we have done, put it on our site, they will still remove it even though you paid royalties for it, because there's nothing on that site that says that you didn't steal it. And so this is the new rule. This is how the European Union has been locked down now. No more free speech there. And they say it's the end of the internet in Europe, because basically you can't survive under these kind of conditions. And it's not just the internet. It's your email account. It's your Gmail account. It's everything. And do not believe that there is anything you think you're doing that is not surveilled. And if you trigger a red flag, that's it. They're going to simply remove it. Now, this is the power of the internet. When the internet came out, and Hillary Clinton was down in Rose Law Firm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Bill was, climbing the ladder to become the governor of Arkansas, where then they connected to China and sold us out to China, connected to Russia, sold us out to Russia, connected to Iran, sold us out in the Iran-Contra scandal, connected to all these foreign powers. And so when they were chosen to go to the White House, and that's really the way it is, you're chosen by the forces who have the money and the power behind basically election fraud, which has been going on since the time of Nixon, horribly, by the way, since the time of Nixon. So what we see here is this small group, even back in the 70s in Little Rock, said, hey, let's just get a group together, channel all patents through us, steal what we need, and then get bozos who are going to be the cardboard cutout leaders of this. So they created a thing called the Richard C. Walker Internet of Things, or the Aggressive Remote Control. It's a patent which subsumes basically everything that you can imagine. The Internet of Things is subsumed by this. Then she got Jerry C. Walker, and then she got certain individuals who for 20, 30 years...
Jerry C. Jones.
They've been working basically as Hillary's good buddies, and they've been basically held up by what I would assume is some type of intergroup agreement, some kind of cabal that has basically decided to control technology, especially high technology in America. And all the lies that Americans didn't pay for the lines that run the internet, that's a lie. That the internet is owned by some mysterious force? No, it was ran by that group. The numbers were assigned by Stephen Crocker, and when ICANN was then given up during Obama's time so that the numbers could be assigned by a different group, I can't even find who assigns that, but I do now see articles that say that the middle ground, where they, I guess, assign domain names and all these other things, there's a man in the middle. So not only do they have the certificate keys, the crypto keys, which controls everything going every which way, they now control literally every single site in the world, because they've inserted a middleman, what you sometimes kind of refer to in elections as man in the middle. Everything doesn't have to, but everything can flow through there, and they can stop the flow going either way and do whatever they want.
It's a simple filter, and it's put between the lookup of the actual domain name that you type in and the street address number, the set of numbers associated with that. So all they've done is they've put another column in it was a 2-column spreadsheet, now it's a 3-column, and that filter information is going to pass back and forth between those two references. And I suppose if you're on some watch list, or I'm sure they're couching it all in Homeland Security, anti-terrorism, giving it all the right rationales. But if on the other hand you're a censorship target, they're just going to say turn them off. It's going to be that easy. Yes to a no.
Can you explain the way that the FBI, the NSA are all part of this system, that they can even get into those systems, their subsystems, and the way that works?
Well, the crazy thing that's happened is that this certificate, Federal Bridge Authority, has given authorities to private contractors to manage the domain name lists for this Federal Bridge Authority. So in the case of, for example, the state of Ohio or the state of Florida, they've given the contract for those keys to a company called Cloudflare. And we had some people digging into that during the last election, and we discover that Cloudflare is the chief information officer for Cloudflare is a guy by the name of Joseph Sullivan, whose mother was a CIA agent in the 60s. And as it's turning out, he has, like a bee, pollinated one large organization like Airbnb to another one to the extent he's now, and he was at Facebook for a while, and now he's at Cloudflare. And so therefore, the other key thing about him is that he actually went to work for Robert Mueller in San Francisco when he was a U.S. attorney, and actually appears on court documents with Robert Mueller from that period. So now we see a direct connection between Cloudflare and Robert Mueller. So it's apparent that this knowledge of the encryption keys goes way back to the beginning of the Clinton administration, that all the players then knew about it. And of course, that's when Al Gore said that he invented the internet. And that was probably Freudian, because he was in those meetings and he would have known that nothing's going to happen on the internet unless they pass through our key system that we're going to control. Hindsight's 20/20. That's clearly what was going on. And so ever since then, figuratively speaking, these people have been raping and pillaging. They've been pulling off all data for all people in whatever type of filtering system they devised at the time to stay ahead of the narratives. And that's why I think, to answer your question, nothing ever happens with these people, because they already know the arguments that people are going to use against them, and they've already preempted those arguments.
And that includes that they can go into the FBI network and all the others, right?
Oh yeah, the FBI itself is managed by one of these private companies. I can't remember I think that one's in trust.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk for a second about what you discovered with your research. And of course, we were right there cheering along and just absolutely laughing quite hysterically over some of this. But you got Bill Clinton, who then sets up a dummy committee called the National Common Policy Committee or group, and that's the head IT guys for each of the cabinet members. In other words, a bunch of bozos. And this is in the early days of technology. Remember, Bill Clinton said he never used an email. He never sent one, never received one. He didn't know anything about technology.
Well, commercial uses of the internet, I mean, technology had been around a long time, but I think what you mean is when they started looking at allowing the internet, which was a government network, to be used for commercial purposes.
Precisely. Because they already had the DARPA net. They already had the In-Q-Tel's CIA net. They already had all kinds of military nets.
Right.
So these things, there was the question of, well, if we allow this incredibly powerful DARPA net to become public, an internet, how are we going to control it? Well, let's have crypto keys. Okay, well, let's have a group here of these IT people who are the head of each of the federal agencies get together, and basically they're going to rubber stamp every year, giving a charter to a company called Entrust, who basically at first was almost a monopoly, and then when you are a crony of the people who run Entrust, then you might get another one of these companies below it to handle a subsection of this gigantic network.
Right.
And that then fulfills what we were told, that the most corrupt people retire by going into the Federal Bridge Authority certification system, and they get themselves one of these companies. So your research, which is always absolutely amazing, your researchers, it's just astounding. Every single day I'm called.
Can I take some cheesecake with me for them?
Lord, I want you to take the whole cheesecake and that extra cappuccino machine we have, because
Great.
the researchers that you're working with literally go into lineages, and they go into people. It's all about biography. If you can figure out who a person is, where they've been, what they've done, and get the exact evidence of that, then you can see what's really going on. So as you just mentioned, which is genius, I hadn't thought of that from the beginning, the whole thing is always British, just like when they used Marconi as a fake cardboard cutout, stealing Tesla inventions and patents. And then they start either in Britain or Canada with a nice name, oftentimes completely a monopoly supported by the government. And so Entrust, this company that started off, it's like, oh, it's an American company. No. Trace it back. A minute ago, it was a Canadian company. It was actually a Canadian company in America.
It was the security division of Nortel Networks, which was essentially a Canadian phone company. It was private, but all those phone companies in Canada were essentially nationalized.
Absolutely. They were monopolies. They were supported by the government. So here we have a company that, a minute ago was up in Canada as part of their government, and now because of the Five Eyes Agreement, we're going to allow them to control the crypto keys for all internet communications and intranet, what one might call intranet, or the CIA network, the FBI network, the Homeland Security network. These are all, many of them are subsections of this giant network. And each of those, why would we give out to the Canadians the most sensitive thing that there is on the internet and the greatest power that there is? Well, that's because it was all a setup to begin with. So it comes into this country under Entrust, then it changes.
Can I interrupt you there? Yeah. Because now we've just discovered that the reason there was this tight relationship between Canada, the U.S., and the U.K. and others is because in 1946, at the end of the war, the security agencies between Britain and America signed a secret intelligence sharing agreement, which the agreement itself says could not be disclosed to any third party that was not a party to the agreement. In other words, an actual party, a person. And that document was not declassified by the NSA until 2010. And so we already had a deal. We were already giving them everything. They were giving us everything. So clearly each side said, well, probably they used that agreement for many kinds of negotiations where, well, you either do that for us or we're going to make this agreement known. So I'm sure there was a lot of blackmail going on inside that group.
So imagine Clinton's got his National Common Policy Committee, which is just a rubber stamp group, to charter this to Entrust. Well, why wouldn't you trust him? It's a name, Entrust, okay? It's not distrust.
Oh, that gives me a warm fuzzy.
Doesn't it just make you let's give them all of our secrets, all of our military secrets, and complete access to everything. Who are these people? Doesn't matter. They used to be Canadians. It's got to be good. All Canadians are nice people. And then what happens? Then Entrust starts to turn into a complete, a circus, a three-ring circus. A guy named Orlando Bravo buys it. A guy who's never done anything before and never done anything afterwards somehow gets to control this entire network. It's because at that point it's almost a monopoly. Then he breaks it into Thoma Bravo. Then he breaks it into 3 or 4 other companies that then just dissolve and move over to where? Shanghai, China.
And that's when they sold a part of some of those subsidiaries of Entrust to Michael Chertoff.
Yes.
So Michael got into the action there after he became a private citizen.
And then it shifts, even once it gets to Shanghai, China, into this company's name and that company's name. Then it starts to get these weird banks getting involved. And then all of a sudden, bingo, it's popped back up in America. And who do you think is leading it? Richard C. Walker. Her cardboard cutout from way, way back, just minutes after the IBM Eclipse Foundation stole Leader Technologies' trade secrets and everything else, which, created basically social media, and they've all made trillions of dollars off of it. Hillary got a piece of every bit of it, because now we see that her man, Richard C. Walker, as well as Jerry C. Jones, as well as, her competition, Joe Sullivan and Robert Mueller, there's a little fight going on here, right? And so when you want to have anything done in Washington, D.C., the District of Crime, right now you have to go through Robert Mueller. But hey, guess what? Robert Mueller is faking these attacks to get the materials that he is stealing from the people he's investigating through Andrew Weissman's book.
Which he would have already had.
That's my point. He already had it. That was just the physical justification for the fact that he could already go in and steal it.
Right. Yeah, with that level of information, it's easy to entrap people, because if you've got access to all their files, all their information, and you can't use it because you can't prove you didn't steal it, then you're going to just keep asking that person questions in open court until that person slips up. And since nobody is perfect, everybody's going to slip up. So this is the ultimate blackmail system for the planet. And I'm talking about including congressmen, senators, members of the cabinet, their employees, at whatever level you want. You've got access to everything. Now that doesn't mean you're going to take it all, but you're going to get it if you need it. Or you're going to hack into somebody's website and pull down their files there, or you're going to hack into their personal PCs and their network, and you're going to get it there. One way or another, you're going to get it. This is the ultimate blackmail system.
I believe a true indicator of that, circumstantially speaking, is that during the time of Mueller in the running the FBI and then Comey, the IG report clearly states that they almost never pulled a FISA court warrant for anyone in America. In other words, somehow Mueller and Comey had all the surveillance they needed. They didn't even need to do warrants. They didn't need to do any wiretapping of anybody. They already had it, and we know that they had General Flynn's remarks from things that he didn't even know he was being surveilled from. We know that they did that with Don Jr. and the Trump Towers. We know on and on and on and on. So the point is, it fills in the missing pieces that Robert Mueller has the ability to surveil and basically manipulate any information that he wants that has been digitized on the internet. How about then that's the answer. Hillary Clinton doesn't go to jail because she can do that for herself, and has been, through her agents, of course, been doing that all along. And also then she decided she's going to sell her information to Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. We know that. We are told by Jonathan Weiner that it isn't $2 billion that the Clinton Foundations and Global Initiatives have brought in. It's $20 billion, but that it's hidden. And there is, I think you're the one who said, what are there, 24, 27 different foundations and initiatives?
35.
35. Those are toll booths. Those are tax booths. And they're planted wherever money flows. And better than money right now is information. We're in an information war. She stays in power, and it looks like she may be backing off for a bit, but that's only because I believe she may hand the torch on to the next person. She owes all those countries because she took billions of dollars from them. And the reason she could do all of these things is because she is literally the queen of the internet. And basically, her and her buddy, Stephen Crocker, and their little tech patent theft cabal, they've been controlling it from the beginning. There is, it is a myth that they can't take every single radical Islamic fascist Muslim off the internet. Well, they could do one query, attack, surveil them, target them, attack them, and they would be wiped out. They can control it. Like Russia just created their own intranet. They're disconnecting themselves from the internet, so they'll have their own internal system. China's already done that, and they're doing it, adding on layers of Dragonfly, of these social credit systems that are basically, literally already killed over 1 million people and locked up another 1 million people. and it's coming to America. It's here now. We keep yelling about it, but the trick is you just stand back and you get frustrated and you get really flustered because it looks like the war of all against all is here and apocalypse is here. But Bill and Hillary just keep on going like the Energizer Bunny, and you just can't figure it out. Thank you, Michael McKibben, for giving us the indictable information. Bill Barr, indictable information, William Barr, Attorney General. Just simply go to our friends, the Americans for Innovation. It's all there. And what we're saying, we've been putting in articles in AIM for Truth, and the Anonymous Patriots have been working with other groups to reveal these things. We gave you all the information you need, the dates, the times, the names of the companies, all the indictable information. All you have to do is act on it. Last I want to say about this is Hillary Clinton in Shanghai worked through Singapore to turn Qualcomm into an attempted merger with Broadcom to give the cheapest bid for the installation of 5G throughout America. That is an attempt to sterilize every single woman and man in America, kill the insects and animals, and it is a Chinese plot that is worse than what Clinton already did with manufacturing, and Trump is now finally winning the war and turning the tide on that. What she did with uranium and nuclear nonsense with Putin, and then the manipulation she did for arms trading. She's the biggest arms trader in history. If you look at what she did as Secretary of State, $86 billion, or more a year she gave away, and most of it was in arms, and most of it was then donations from those very countries back to her into her foundations. So you have to say, what happened to all the information, physical data that they went down, physical paper, to where? Rose Law Firm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and they went after all the politicians in Arkansas, and the FBI filled a plane full of the stuff that they went down there and took. That's because the physical evidence has to be wiped out so that they can manipulate it when it's digital. What they'll tell us later is that it's all been digitized. It hasn't. These scams of centralization into digital systems, which are then controlled by a few people, that's a scam, folks. That's called the United Nations. That's called the DTCC. It's called Seed & Company. It's called MERS. It's always the same story. And when you look hard, you're going to see that these are old friends.